Collier-Wise. Here. Elwig. Here. Holland. Here. Humphrey. Here. Price. Here. Sorensen.
Here.
Ward. Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Powell.
Here. Everyone please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thought I had it on. Okay, third item are minutes from August 20th special meeting and then August 20 regular meeting. A motion, a second to approve both sets of minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Adoption of the agenda. Mike or John, any additions or corrections?
Second.
Motion, a second to approve the agenda as printed. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Under visitors to be heard, addressing the council. Persons addressing the council shall use the microphone at the podium. Please raise your hand to be recognized, go to the podium, and state your name and address. For items that are not on the agenda, members of the public may speak under visitors to be heard on any topic not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes, and no decision will be made at this time. For agenda items, public testimony will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item after the subject has been announced by the mayor and explained by staff. Any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item. Public testimony will then be closed and the topic will be given to the governing body for possible action. At this point, only city council members and staff may discuss the current agenda item unless a council member moves to allow another person to speak and there's unanimous consent from the council. Questions from council members, however, may be directed to staff or a member of the public through the presiding officer at any time. At this point, we have a proclamation. And Tom, if you'd read that, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm particularly honored to read this, being a kid with fond memories of the W.H. Over Museum and having Vermillion City fire truck, first one, placed inside the front door of this museum. And also in light of the tragic fire in Brazil that destroyed a whole lot of history. My heart goes out to Brazil for that. I have a neighbor from Brazil who's really sad about it. So this is a proclamation of celebration of the 135th founding of the W.H. Over Museum. Whereas the W.H. Over Museum, named after the former museum director William Henry Over, was founded in 1883 as part of the University of South Dakota. And whereas in 1997, the operations of the W.H. Over Museum were turned over to the Friends of the W.H. Over Museum, and whereas the W.H. Over Museum is organized and operated exclusively for charitable, scientific, and educational purposes, including, without limiting the generality of the foregoing, the advancement of the public interest in and understanding and knowledge of natural science and cultural history. And whereas the mission of the W.H. Over Museum is to collect, preserve, document, exhibit, research, study, and interpret objects relating to natural and cultural history, primarily of South Dakota. And whereas the W.H. Over Museum plays an important role in maintaining the history and culture of Vermillion and South Dakota, and assists in increasing tourism by providing learning opportunities and hosting community events. Now, therefore, we, the governing body of the city of Vermillion, South Dakota, do hereby proclaim September 16th, 2018, as the celebration of the 135th founding of the W.H. Over Museum in Vermillion, South Dakota, and call upon the residents of this great city to join in commemorating this event and continuing to support the activities and the mission of the W.H. Over Museum, dated this 4th day of September 2018.
Thank you, Tom, and we'll see that the proclamation gets to the museum. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on a topic that's not on the agenda? Anyone on the council? Anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move then to public hearings. There are none, so we'll turn to old business.
Second reading of ordinance 1384 to amend Chapter 51 Electricity, Section 51.22, Residential Service Rate to add 51.22B2C to provide for a master electric meter serving exclusive student housing facilities, providing dormitory-style apartment units. And John, please.
Thank you. As I think pretty much everyone's aware, the Heights is constructing a 74-unit building to house 200-plus post-secondary students. That's on the west side of North Dakota Street, just north of, well, just south of Alumni Street, I guess is the easier way to phrase it. And they came to the city and expressed a desire to have a master electrical meter as they will be paying for the utilities of their residents. Both City Code and PURPA, which are federal standards, require individual meters, as does our state's Public Utilities Commission. But our state's Public Utilities Commission does, our state's Public Utilities Commission doesn't regulate city rates or our policies, but generally the city tries to follow PUC practices. The developer expressed how they are like a dormitory, and our state's Public Utilities Commission does provide an exception for dormitories. They presented this information to the Utilities Committee back in May, and that the Utilities Committee recommended bring forward a matter for the City Council to consider. We did have a couple different versions of that. And the August 6th meeting, the final version that the Utilities Committee recommended was presented to the City Council. And then at your last meeting on August 20th, you had first reading of Ordinance 1384. This ordinance would provide for a master electrical meter for a large exclusive student housing project if it did meet these conditions. One is that there'd be at least 70 or more dormitory-style apartment units. They would need to house at least 200 post-secondary enrolled students. The master electrical meter would be only for the residential purposes. It would not be for any commercial spaces or entities that might be located on the site. The parking lot, laundry room, lounges, a pool, anything there that's not a residential use. The resale of electricity is prohibited. They would annually need to document and demonstrate that with their leases that they have rules and regulations that would demonstrate how it is like a dormitory. And if they do not meet the conditions, they would immediately need to alter and comply with the multiple dwelling requirements, which would be a single meter for each individual unit there. This agenda item here only creates this category. Later on in your agenda, you do have a resolution to establish a rate if this class of residential rate is accepted. As I noted, first reading was at your last meeting, August 20th. A second reading of any ordinance does require a roll call vote for the City Council.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this topic? Seeing none, turn to the council.
Move approval. Second.
A motion and a second to approve. Would you set the equipment for a roll call vote, please? The results are 8 yes and 0 no, so the motion passes. Thank you, John. Now, Section 8 is John. Item A, review and use the use of malt beverage markup receipts collected, proposal to use funding during 2019 budget year, and public input on continuation of the wholesale license fee. John, please.
Well, if nothing gets them heading to the aisles now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Back in 2015, during the first quarter, the City Council had a reading on Ordinance 1325, which established the malt beverage markup for our community. So that is the 5% malt beverage markup on the wholesale cost of malt beverages plus the freight. As that ordinance was being developed, we added language to have an annual update to the community with respect to the proposal. That section of the code reads, the City Council will annually have a regular meeting agenda item with the adoption of the budget ordinance to update the community on the use of previous receipts collected, where future receipts would be utilized, and to gather public input on the continuation of the wholesale license fee. Notice of the annual update, time and place will be mailed to all malt beverage license holders in the city. And what we have done is with the July invoice that goes out during the first part of August, we did include in that notice to all of our malt beverage markup participants information about this public hearing this evening. It's also been included in the minutes and noted at City Council meetings, as well as a briefing that we send out following council meetings. Since this began, we had the malt beverage markup in 2015. Those 6 months resulted in a collection of $64,188.47. In 2016, it netted $116,455.40. In 2017, it netted $123,293.70. And during the first 7 months of this year, 2018, it had generated $74,508.93. The invoices for the month of August should be coming in shortly, and then Mike's office will have those out by the middle of September. All of the receipts collected to date have been placed in our Prentice Park Debt Service Fund, and that has gone towards our general obligation bond for the Prentice Park improvements. Included in your memo that's attached to this, it shows the annual amount of that debt service for each one of the years, 2016, 17, 18, as well as for 2019. And 2019's debt service payment is $196,755. I would note that the difference that is not made up by the malt beverage markup, second penny funds, have been providing the balance of the debt service. In addition, the Prentice Park parking lot and the basketball courts, which were completed this year, were fully funded utilizing second penny funds. Staff did include continuation of the malt beverage markup in the 2019 budget and would make that recommendation to the City Council.
Thank you, John. Council, questions for City Manager?
So moved. We just need to receive it.
I think we have to approve it going forward. Is that,
Going forward.
isn't that what your recommendation is?
Second.
So, okay, we have a motion to second to approve the review and also the continuation of the collection of this fee. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, first reading of ordinance 1385, 2019 appropriations. John, please.
Thank you. I guess just for the prop, this is the, you can see the size of it. This is the 2019 proposed budget that was presented to the City Council at their first meeting in August. And I want to appreciate and thank the council for the amount of time that they spend going through this. It's a process that starts with our department heads and our employees offering suggestions and comments and projects. We try to compile all those and bring a proposed budget forward to the City Council. I didn't look it up, but I would venture to say on August 15th and 16th, the City Council in meetings probably spent about 8-9 hours going through that budget book and developing the proposal that's before you this evening for adoption with this ordinance. So thank you to the City Council, our department heads and staff for putting that document together and advancing it to this point. Just a couple of notes on the budget. The 2.1% increase in the dollars that we'd collect in property taxes, as well as the growth that's outside of our TIF districts is included in there. That nets just about $83,900 in additional funding for 2019. We also have anticipated a 3% sales tax growth over our revised 2018 number, and that should net about $56,000. There are no water, sanitary, sewer, or electric rate increases included in the budget for 2019. The only rate increase is for our storm sewer fund. That's about 3.7%, which will net us just under $9,000 in additional funding to help with storm sewer projects. As we'll talk about here in a minute, the general fund is again very tight for 2019, and we're proposing the use of some additional funding to help with that. But with all that said, there are a number of notable and I think some very exciting projects for our community included in the 2019 budget. It does support a 2% COLA for our employees and step increases as eligible and warranted. We also included library materials. We annually spend about $95,000 for new materials for our library. A project that we keep trying each year to get this done. It's again included in the budget is our Vermillion River hike bike path, kind of rerouting that. We're hopeful that next year will be the year that we can bring that forward. There is again additional improvements for our parks. Next year, one of the larger ones will be the Prentice Ball Field, improving that playing surface, and also some light replacement at the Prentice Park Ball Field, an additional restroom in Prentice Park, some ADA accessible and compliant bleachers there. Next year will be the second year of our 5-year plan to install advanced metering infrastructure in both our electric and water meters. It'll be the final year of our LED streetlight conversion, so all the lights maintained by Vermillion Light and Power. Next year, we'll complete that project to be LED. which we are starting to see some of the savings, as well as the length of life is longer with those structures. One that most people won't see is recoating the interior of our Church Street water reservoir. That's something that is necessary to do on a periodic basis. Shane's got a project that starts here probably before the month is out. The wastewater treatment plant, some boiler, digester boiler and related improvements. That project will carry forward into next year. A very visible project for our community is Anderson Street reconstruction. That'll be from Main Street to Clark Street. We did continue $1 million for the downtown project that is earmarked going forward into 2019. There's an additional police department detective to help with some of the additional work that the police department has, in particular with investigations. And then also there's funding for some of our different outside agencies that the city partners with to help carry out their mission. So I could talk about this ad nauseum longer, and I think the council's heard that, so I won't continue. But we would recommend approval of Ordinance 1385 to establish the 2019 appropriations.
Council?
Move approval?
A motion and a second to approve first reading of Ordinance 1385, the 2019 appropriations. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item C, first reading of Ordinance 1386, the 2018 revised appropriations. John?
Well, as hard as we try, we never quite get the budget appropriations ordinance right. And so typically twice a year we bring you revisions to the current year's budget. One time is in September as we're working on the budget for the next year, and then there'll be kind of a cleanup one in December of this year. Really, there are not too many changes with respect to the 2018 budget this year. We are projecting our sales tax revenue to be a little bit less than what we did budget, so we've reduced both first and second penny by approximately $35,000. Timing of some of our construction projects is difficult to know. I just mentioned the one that Shane has going on here at the wastewater treatment plant. Last year at this time, we were working on the Prentice Street lift station, those related improvements, as well as our Northeast electrical substation. When those are in multiple years, it's sometimes hard to get those numbers right. So we have some budget adjustments to clarify those respective final payments. Last year at this time, we were also just about ready to get started on the Prentice Park parking lot and basketball courts that I mentioned a few moments ago. So again, the timing of those particular payments is hard to project in September of 2017 what will be paid in 2017 and what will be paid in 2018. I would note that overall, the second penny fund revenues and expenses are proposed to be revised from $1,990,900 down to $1,916,700. Our general fund revenues and expenses are being revised from $8,110,829 up to $8,461,075. The largest portion of that increase of roughly $300,000 in the general fund has to do with our Jefferson Street project. Came in a little bit more than anticipated. We also had a pool construction payment that was in 2018 that we need to account for. And then the sales tax rebate, the partnership we worked out with Masaba in January of this year, we need to account for that pass-through. So those are really the three largest changes. There's other smaller ones that are $4,000 or $5,000.
Thank you. Comments or questions for John? Did you separate Anderson from the other street that you just mentioned?
Yes, Jefferson Street, most of those expenses, this all goes well. It should be all completed this year. This year, with respect to Anderson Street, we have some engineering costs, but next year is the construction costs.
Okay.
And I would note that those are largely funded by STIP, which is federal money passed through the state, passed to us. And so we receive STIP payments from the state each year, and that's kind of a, if you will, a STIP savings account that we build up, and then we pay for these projects from that fund.
Thank you. Council?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the first reading of Ordinance 1386, the 2018 revised appropriations. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item D, first reading of Ordinance 1387, second penny for general fund. John?
Thank you. As I noted a little bit earlier, our general fund is probably, it is each year the tightest fund that we do have. And generally, when we bring you a proposed budget for the next year, we do propose using some general fund reserves. In the past, that's been approximately $250,000 to about $315,000. As we were putting together this year's budget, we were over $425,000 of reserve funding that would be needed to help support that budget. Usually we can bring you a proposed budget that includes use of some reserves. Expenses maybe don't all aren't as large as we might anticipate, or we might have some vacancies in staff, which usually help us overcome that use of reserves in most years. In this particular case, we thought we had too large of a deficit to overcome. And so we're looking at what are some other options that we could utilize additional funding to come into our general fund to help reduce that amount of potential use of general fund reserves. Our state statutes do allow for the use of second penny funds in the general fund. The City Council in 2003 adopted an ordinance that all second penny funds would be utilized for capital items and not for the general fund. But we felt that was one area that perhaps if we were to transfer some of that funding from the second penny to the general fund, it would help support those core operations that are funded out of the general fund. We had this discussion, as you obviously recall, during our budget meetings in August, and we developed a proposal, and that's the ordinance that's attached this evening. This would provide for up to $95,000 of second penny funds to be utilized to help fund the general fund in 2019. The message that the council delivered is we're not going to just dump that money in there if we don't need to, and so the ordinance is written that you would need to make that decision basically during September of 2019 and transfer those funds via adoption of a resolution. So I have a few more opportunities to vote on that and discuss that. If we do transfer $95,000 of second penny funding to the general fund, that would then balance our budget out if we utilize $331,628 of general fund reserves. So we're not by any means eliminating the possibility that we'd need to dip into reserves in general fund. We're simply supplementing that if we need to do so. So that'll be something that we'll monitor and we'll keep the council updated on, and we'll certainly talk about it in August and September of 2019. But this ordinance would provide the mechanism for 2019 only for a transfer of up to $95,000 of second penny funds to the general fund.
Any comments or questions for John on this item? I know we fleshed it out at budget hearings, but you have another chance if you have any comments or questions.
Move approval. Second.
A motion and a second to approve the ordinance to transfer 2019 second penny funds to the general fund. And I don't know if it's necessary to add that that is only if needed. Is that appropriate to include that, Jim? Okay. Is that understood then with the council? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item E, a resolution establishing an electric rate for residential service provided under 51.22B2C. And John, please.
Thank you. On old business, you had second reading of Ordinance 1384, which established the master electrical meter that could be used for a large dormitory-style apartment unit. I won't reiterate all that, but just a few moments ago you established that. With our city code, we typically use language in there with a fee to be set by resolution. That way we can come in and adjust those fees as we have changes. And so we went to using that with the 2008 code update. So what this does is attaches the resolution that would establish the rate for those large dormitory-style apartment units for that master electrical meter. This rate is kind of a blend of our large commercial as well as our residential rate. The proposal is to have a meter charge of $40 plus $6.75, and both of those are monthly fees for each residential unit over one connected to the master meter. So if I remember correctly, the Heights is going to be a 74-unit structure. There would be one $40 charge per month and 73 $6.75 charge per month for each one of those individual units. So that would be their meter charge for that complex. And then the usage would be the large commercial rate that we have established at the same for other large commercial rates and the demand charge. Now, with our electrical setup in the community, we have our summer rate, and then for 3 months we have a slightly higher rate than we do for the other 9 months of the year. But so it follows that same pattern. Those are attached in the resolution before you. You can look at the large commercial, and you'll see that those rates are the same. I would note that this is the same approach that we do use with respect to the water department. We have a few situations where we have a large we have one large water meter, and then there are some other, sometimes mobile homes that take their water from that. And so they have a per unit charge in addition to that master meter. So it does follow a setup that we do use with another one of our city utilities. Shane's also here, can help me answer any questions you might have for that, but we recommend approval of the resolution as presented.
Comments or questions? Tom?
A quick question, if you would, sir. Did you say 70? How many units did you say?
I believe 74, and I
Okay.
tried to use that in my example of one $40 charge and 73,685.
Thanks.
It's right around 74.
I didn't wear my hearing aids. so-
What? Comments, questions? Yes.
So just to be clear, it's instead of 74 times $11, it's $40 plus $675 for each. So instead of
73.
73,
'Cause of-
right, so it's a difference of $814 versus $539 total per month?
I'm not disagreeing with your math. I know I've calculated it out, but I didn't bring that note with me here this
Okay.
evening. But yes, it sounds that way. And that was part of the measuring. The 675, obviously so in our $11 a month residential customer charge, which is typically what they would have had for each unit, there's a piece of that is for the meter and for the billing related to that. And so we try to take those pieces out and only have it reflect the distribution facilities piece of our customer service charge is where the 675 came from.
Gotcha, thank you.
Further comments or questions? Pleasure of the council. A motion and a second to approve resolution establishing electric rate. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, John. Item F, resolution of necessity and notice of hearing for construction of concrete surfacing along Elm Street from Alumni Street to 246 feet south of Alumni Street. And John, please. Or Jose, excuse me.
He can do it. if you
Well,
want.
I'm just so used to John on everything here. Jose.
Thank you. As you mentioned, last week we actually received a petition from the Vermillion Heights for the assessment or construction of Elm Street from, yep, here it goes. This would be Alumni, Cottage, Dakota. This is Elm. These are the apartments that are already existing at that location. This would be the Alumni Center, Dome, obviously. The Heights right now is actually being constructed in this parcel here, and they have requested for the construction of this portion of Elm. That's actually required by the developers agreement that was approved by the city council and by them in April earlier this year. That agreement actually required that this portion of Elm would be completed no later than October 1st of 2020 or when the city council required. However, due to the fact that we did receive the petition from the property owner for that completion, then we are bringing it up to the council at this time. Whenever we do receive a petition from the owners requesting projects to be complete, especially street projects, we like to give the person petitioning 3 options, and I mentioned them here, but essentially you have option 1, which is the city does everything. We bid it out, and then we assess the property owners the respective amounts. Option 2 would be where the staff actually gets a consultant. The consultant does all the plan specifications. The city bids it out, and then we assess the property owner the cost of the project and the cost of hiring that consultant. And then option 3 would be where the owner actually hires a consultant, and then they also hire a contractor. They do the project and they pay for everything themselves. And for this case here, the Vermillion Heights, the owner, they actually chose option 2. So they're going to be asking the city to enter into an agreement with a consultant and get the specs and the plans done that way. And then we take over after that, and we would be handling the bidding and the assessment of it. To save some money, I guess, to the Vermillion Heights or to the prospective owners of this or people affected, we are looking into entering into a contract with the consultant firm that the Vermillion Heights had already used, considering, and this is mainly due to the fact that they had already done a portion of Elm Street, so there would be some savings for the people that are involved in the assessment. The special assessment process requires that the governing body set a public hearing date and also notify the property owners of the hearing by both publishing a meeting and sending meeting notices to them. The notice calls for the public hearing to be held on October 1st, 2018. The cost will include postage and the publication of the notice. The city has not budgeted for this improvement. The budget will have to be revised during the 2020 budget sessions next August. Administration recommends adoption of the resolution that sets a public hearing for October 1st, 2018.
And this option gives 8% to the city?
Nope, option 2, there would be no 8%. There's no fiscal fee attached to that.
Just
Yep.
the option 1.
Yep, option 1 would be the only one with a fiscal fee.
Thank you. Comments, Tom?
Just a question, if you would, sir. The city chooses the consultant, and you recommended somebody who's in the neighborhood, but they pay for the consultant.
The actual cost of the consultant firm would be split between the property owners that would be assessed.
Split 50/50?
No, it's by frontage.
Oh, by frontage, okay.
Yep.
I forgot. The other question I have is, do you know approximately what the consultant fees are going to be?
To be honest with you, no, I haven't spoken with them, I guess. As far as this is concerned, I kind of want to get permission from the council before I get that far ahead into it.
But it'll be below $50,000.
I would assume so, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Rich, please.
Well, say, doesn't Vermillion Heights own all the property on either side of that street?
No, they don't. They actually own everything. They own that empty parcel that I was pointing out earlier. This here, oops,
It was quick.
yeah. They own this. There's a different property owner on this parcel here.
Okay.
Yep. So those two would be the only ones that would be assessed.
Thank
you.
Further comments or questions? A motion and a second to approve the resolution. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thanks, Jose.
Thank you.
Bid openings, item A, fuel quotes, Mike.
Sitting in front of you tonight should be the fuel quotes and on the monitors. First quote received from Stern Oil on item 1, unleaded gasoline with 10% ethanol, $2.46.54. Item 2, unleaded gasoline regular, $2.70.58. Item 3, number 2, diesel fuel dyed, $2.53.14. Item 4, number 2, diesel fuel clear, $2.82.79. Second quote was from Brunick Service. Item 1, $2.50. Item 2, $2.77. Item 3, $2.55. Item 4, $2.88. Stern Oil would be the low quote on all of them.
Council? Motion to second to accept the low bids. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Liquefied propane quotes, and Shane, please.
Thank you. Annually, we request quotes for the supply of our liquefied propane. The propane is used at the solid waste department, with the majority of it being used out at the landfill and a smaller amount being used at the recycling center. In the past, the wastewater treatment facility did use a very little amount. The digester improvements project will eliminate that need for propane at the wastewater treatment facility moving forward. Quote documents were sent out to 7 liquefied propane providers. We received 4 quotes, with the low quote coming in at 96.2 cents per gallon and the high quote coming in at $1.20 per gallon. The low quote was received from Butch's Propane Incorporated from Obert, Nebraska. The funds are budgeted by the landfill and the recycling center, and staff recommends awarding Butch's Propane Incorporated with a contract for 17,000 gallons of liquefied propane at the cost of 96.2 cents per gallon.
Thank you, Shane. Questions for Shane? Motion and second to approve the low bid for liquefied propane quotes. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks, Shane.
Thank you.
Item 10, City Manager's Report. John, please.
Thank you. Just a reminder that the Bike Master Plan Open House will be next Monday night from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., and that's Monday, September 10th, here in the City Council chambers. I won't go through all of them, but just a reminder that portions of Main Street, Market, Austin, Kidder, Court, Austin, and Prospect at different times will be closed portions of this coming weekend, September 7th, 8th, and 9th, for the Ribs, Rods, and Rock and Roll event here in downtown Vermillion. Also a reminder that this Saturday, September 8th, is one of the Saturdays that there'll be parking removed in the north end of Dakota Street between Alumni and Highway 50, and that Rose Street from Spruce Street north to the Dome will be closed. That's part of USD and the football Saturdays, and the parking that's removed and the street that's closed. And that closure this month is September 8th from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and there'll obviously be some more in October and November. We are accepting applications, or expression of interest forms, I should say, for the tree board. We have 2 terms, one that's become vacant with Howard leaving the tree board to come to city council, and the other one, the incumbent term, his term is expiring, but we do have 2 terms that will be we're receiving expression of interest forms for. We do ask that those be returned by noon Wednesday the 12th, and then we anticipate the city council make appointments at the next meeting on September 17th. And then I did provide 1 copy. We did receive some information from the Verizon representative with respect to a tower, and they're looking for comments from the city council with respect to the design, as we are the owners of that property, before they begin their process. So if you do have any comments, if you want to share those with me afterwards, I'll be happy to relay those back to the consultant. Thank you.
Comments or questions for John? Seeing none, turn to Mike on invoices payable. Comments or questions for paying our bills?
Move to pay our bills.
A motion and a second to pay our bills. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 12, consensus agenda. Set a public hearing date of September 17, 2018 for a special daily malt beverage and wine license for the Vermillion Area Arts Council on or about October 6, 2018 at 202 Washington Street.
Move approval of the consensus agenda.
Motion and a second to approve the consensus agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Who's going to do it?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you.